Hey class, Dr. Stevens here. This week you will be selecting your topic for your literature review, and I just wanted to give a few comments regarding that. I've already made some of this information available to you, but I just wanted to have this be a sort of a cohesive narrative regarding that. So you'll be selecting your topic for your literature review, and what that means is that you'll be locating a number of peer-reviewed resources that relate to your topic and how you choose to approach making your argument for whatever your position is. So in that regard, your topic needs to be something that is of interest to you, needs to be meaningful to you, something that you would be willing to, stand up and defend under, scholarly circumstances. And what this does is sort of gives you an idea of what you'd be looking at in a master's thesis or a doctoral dissertation. And sort of the joke there is that you pick a topic that you are interested in and that you love, and by the time you're done writing your thesis or your dissertation, you hate the topic and you're sick of it. And so that being the case, knowing that you're going to hate it by the time you're done, it needs to be something that you can at least tolerate during that love-hate relationship. But you all have something in your life or your background or your profession or your studies that's of interest to you, and you can focus on that. And I'm not really fussy over what it is. It can be, just about anything you choose. Some examples that I've received in the past, just to give you ideas. For example, the childhood immunizations would be one. Child care, working mothers, single parents, step parents, a lot of topics with social implications. Those are really, really good ones to choose from. As I mentioned in a previous piece of information to you, there are 5 topics that I would like you to avoid. And keep in mind that you're going to be submitting your topic to me, and I'm going to, it'll require my approval. And I typically do approve what is submitted, and I will oftentimes offer some suggestions. But 5 topics, that I won't approve, simply because I don't think that they add value to your experience. Either they're totally worn out, or I think that it would be difficult or impossible for you to make a new or a meaningful argument. So they are abortion, capital punishment, the Second Amendment, anything to do with concealed weapons or gun rights or anything like that. And not that I'm making a statement one way or the other. It's just that I've read enough about that, and I don't need to read some more about it. Legalized drugs. That one is almost impossible from my perspective to make a successful argument. That is largely based on opinion. And I've yet to see a student who made a really good argument on that based on peer-reviewed scholarly work. It was mostly opinion pieces. And then the 5th one is the reason I mention this is because in general studies we have quite a number of aviation students here, and they seem to have quite an interest in drones, and that's perfectly understandable. I really am interested in drones as well. But I just don't think that at this early point that there is a sufficient amount of scholarly work that has been done on drones to be able to make that a valid topic. So I'd like you to avoid that. There have been some students in the past that attempted that, and it turned out to be a really weak effort, not because of their lack of effort, but because there just wasn't enough information out there to support the point that they were trying to make. And so I just think that would be a wasted effort. So those 5. So going back to resources, as you research your topic and you try to find valid resources, keep in mind that I'm expecting to see peer-reviewed resources, and that's sometimes hard to determine if they're peer-reviewed. You just sort of have to get a knack and a feel for what is, and sometimes it will come right out and say, and if it's coming out of a scholarly journal, you can assume that it is peer-reviewed. But if it's just some opinion piece out of, say, the Wall Street Journal or New York Times or something like that, it's some op-ed, oftentimes those are not scholarly. They are just the opinion of someone who's paid to write an opinion piece. and that is usually quite evident. I've had students who, for whatever reason, they thought that marketing pieces, informational pieces, promotional pieces were scholarly. Of course, they are not, and newsletters are not. Those are a peer-reviewed resource is one that has been submitted for publication and has been judged by an editor or a panel of some kind that to determine that it's valid and that the research conducted was valid and done correctly. So that's sort of the foundation of it is the article that you're using, is it based on research? It needs to be based on research. It can't just be some informational piece or from your neighbor Joe who happens to have a little bit of knowledge about the topic. So, and then also you need to avoid relying upon your own opinion. This is meant to be a literature review, not an opinion piece from you. So, and as you find those resources, make sure that they connect to whatever your position is. So when you choose your topic, along with that, you need to decide what your position is. And I used the example a while back of climate change as just an example. You don't necessarily need to debate, as an example, you wouldn't necessarily debate whether climate change is taking place or not. You could make the assertion that it is taking place and have that be an assumption. But then you could further that and say, so given that argument doesn't need to be made, my question or my position is, who is benefiting from the discussion, the narrative, and then explore that piece of it. So that would sort of be a side piece of the topic that the topic might not need to be explored and debated that much, but a side component to it could be. So that's an example. And so whatever your position is, when you select your resources, they need to connect to your position. That doesn't mean they have to agree with you or that you have to agree with them. You just have to make a connection and demonstrate that it is all tying together somehow, because that becomes really important when you're doing your final literature review in the end. And then if you can select resources that connect to one another, that is really helpful, because then you can use that in triangulation. And we'll talk about triangulation a little later on in the semester. You can use multiple resources to triangulate the narrative and make it a more robust discussion. And then, as I mentioned, as you go through this, you're going to review 8 articles over a period of 8 weeks in the term. And the final result will be that you're going to use those 8 articles in the end and make a cohesive one-off type, standalone type document, narrative that qualifies as a literature review, that brings it all together and makes it a very coherent and worthy narrative for the reader to read and get something from. So those are just some thoughts I have on selecting your topic. And then also in the discussion this week, I'm going to want you to come into that discussion with your topic and just sort of lay it out for your classmates. And this is what my topic is, this is why I'm interested in it, and this is what my position is. And then your classmates can respond to you and offer some suggestions, maybe some thoughts that they've had if they have some experience on that. Or what I've found to be really helpful is oftentimes someone will say, well, hey, I read something about that a while back, so go check this out, and they can provide some information for you. One other thought as you are looking for resources, and I would think that as you are selecting your topic, you might do a little preliminary work just to go out and see if there are resources available. And because you don't want to get partway down this path and find out that, well, I only found 2 articles and it turns out that's all there is. So you'd want to have at least 8 good articles. But one trick that is really helpful is that when you find a good article, it will most likely have references to other articles in it that the author and the researcher of that work will have included in their literature review, a variety of other works. And so if you look at the works cited page within the article, it will give you some really good ideas of where else you can go find other information on that topic. In this case, with you're only looking, when you're looking for just 8 articles, shouldn't be too hard to get that done. When you're doing a dissertation and you're expected to have many dozens of resources, relying on those works cited from various authors becomes critical to being able to find other work to support your position. So just some thoughts. Be sure to email me or contact me through Canvas if you have any questions on that, and we can work it out together. So anyway, I hope you're off to a good start, and best wishes to you.